Hi folks, I hope you enjoyed the No Limits track day video at Donington Park on my BMW R1250R a few days back. I had a fantastic time and I was pretty happy with my progress overall at the circuit. Perhaps it might be useful for some of you to hear what I did to my bike to make it ready for the day. Prior to the track day itself, I removed both the centre stand and the Denali D7 spotlights that I've got. The centre stand I took off because I've touched it down before at Donington Park, and the spotlights I took off because I don't want them being hit by gravel or stones picked up by bikes in front, or heaven forbid I crash my bike. That was really the extent of the prep. I won't include the considerable time I spent planning the setup for the 3 cameras that I had on the bike for the day. That was by far the most time-consuming part of the prep for this visit, which included me fitting a windscreen from my old BMW S1000R on the front of the bike to protect the GoPro 360 camera on the handlebars. At the track itself, on the day, I did a couple more things before I started riding. Firstly, I removed my wing mirrors and I fitted these to the threads to keep the handguards in place and stop them lifting. I also disconnected the Denali B7 rear light because I didn't want people being blinded when I was getting on the brakes. I also adjusted the suspension. Now, my electronic suspension, 80% of the time I've got it set in road mode for the damping and auto mode for the preload. At the track I set the damping mode to dynamic and I set the preload mode to max. And I found out the bike was very stable and predictable, even when I was pushing my own personal limits on the track. Now that I'm back home, I've set the damping mode back to road, but I've kept the preload option on max. I've found on max that the seat height and the bike just it seems a little bit higher than it usually does for me, and the bike feels a bit firmer overall. At the moment, I quite like it, so I'm going to leave it on there for a while and see what I think over time. Now for the track, I didn't change the riding mode from what I usually have it set to. Most of the time I have it set to dynamic on my bike with the dynamic pack option. I have 4 modes, which is rain, road, dynamic and dynamic pro. However, with Dynamic Pro, you don't actually get any extra performance or throttle mapping over and above what you get with Dynamic. So there's nothing really to be gained by setting it to Dynamic Pro if you're looking for performance. Dynamic Pro just gives you more flexibility over how to set the individual electronic assists. I kept traction control on my ride, and that's not just because I'm a big scaredy cat. The traction control on this bike is way more sophisticated than I gave it credit for when I originally bought the bike. The ECU in this bike is actually used in some BMW group cars, believe it or not, and it is very powerful. I can hardly feel the traction control cutting in to meter the power out when I'm leant over and hard on the throttle, but you can see the power being cut back. You see the TC activating in varying amounts on the dash, which is really good. I'm pretty sure that I would be slower around the track if I didn't have traction control on at all, because my bike's got so much torque. When I'm leant over, I'll be constantly worried about wheel spin and the potential for low siding or high siding the bike, and ain't nobody got time for that. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to be a racer. I'm just out there having fun, pushing my own personal limits forward in a way that will hopefully keep me sunny side up. The traction control has proven to me anyway to be very trustworthy, but it can't work miracles, and if you're on track with cold tyres, then you could potentially get caught out like I nearly did. By the way, the tyres that I used are Metzler M9RR, 120/70 ZR17 in the front, 180/55 ZR17 in the rear. Because the ambient temperature on the day didn't get very high, I didn't feel the need to actually lower the tyre pressures. The front tyre did really well, didn't seem to get very stressed, and I'm not surprised with my riding style. I don't push the front very hard, especially not on the brakes, not yet. The rear did well, I think, for the power and the torque and the weight of this bike. I think the rear coped pretty well. Had a nice wear pattern on it, and it bobbled up nicely at the edges. I also managed a power slide, a TC controlled power slide in 3rd gear out of one of the corners, and I actually felt like a hero. So no complaints. Very sticky tyre, I thought, and I've already found before that it's good in the wet as well, so the tyres come recommended. I'm going back to Donington at least 2 more times this year, hopefully 3. The next time is just in a couple of days time, and that'll be at the Bennett's track day, and I'll be riding a hard Yamaha R6. I can't wait. I'm also going to Bedford Autodrome again. I did that I think last year, so going again this year on the BMW. So if you want to see me trying to go faster around these tracks, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Right, that's about it folks. Take care of yourselves. Ta-ra.